This video is brought to you by Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist, my new book, which is a comprehensive guide to all aspects of music theory necessary for playing rock guitar. From blues to the cycle of fifths, from understanding and using modes to choosing the right notes for a melodic solo, from pentatonic scales to chord construction and keys. It's all covered in a clear and concise manner. With accompanying video demonstrations, jam tracks and tabs, you'll learn to use the knowledge you gain in accessible ways that make sense for less than the cost of a few guitar lessons. Check out the link in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Today's Tuesday, which means as usual we're doing a top 5 list, and if you've seen the video title, which I imagine you have, and the thumbnail because you've just clicked on it, then you'll know what I'm talking about today are solo albums, but let me just be a little bit more specific than that. What I'm going to talk about today are my 5 favourite solo albums by artists who are perhaps better known or originally known as being part of a particular band or group or ensemble of some kind. And, maybe the band split up, maybe they left the band, maybe, they just did a little side project. And in all 5 cases here, I think what they produced were absolute masterpieces, gems of albums, some of my favourites, in fact, which is why we're talking about them today. So let's get started with
Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking by Roger Waters.
Yeah, Roger Waters' first post-Pink Floyd album after he departed, after, the Final Cut was the last album featuring Roger. It's, apart from anything else, it's the best Eric Clapton album of the 1980s. This one came out in 84, and Eric played lead guitar on it and did some, if not all, of the tour with Roger on this. I'm not sure why Eric, kind of bailed out during the tour. Maybe there was some kind of friction. It has to be said that Roger Waters is not known for being an easy chap to get on with, and we'll leave it at that. But this is a great album. It's, there's strong musical ideas and, great hummable melodies, fantastic guitar playing, fantastic production. It's just got it all, really. And, people have described this as the Pink Floyd album that should have been. But I'm happy with it as it is. I think it's a great album and it stands on its own merits. So that's why it's on the list. Next.
The Nightfly by Donald Fagen.
Now, this is the Steely Dan album that should have been, really. Not that I'm saying I missed Walter Becker on this album. I think this album doesn't feel like it's lacking in any way, but, it's just great, Ruby Baby is one of my favourite tracks on here, and, to be honest with you, there's not any bad track, to be honest. It's just a great sort of continuation of the best of what Steely Dan were about. Intelligently written songs with, kind of a little bit of wry humour in there. Fantastic musicianship. Hummable melodies. We all like a melody that we can kind of carry around in our heads, a little bit of an earworm. I'm not one of these people that's big on it has to be obscure to be of any musical merit. No, I like a tune. I like something with a tune, and this album is full of them, as well as fantastic musicianship and stunning production. This one, when did this come out? In 82. Think about how many albums that came out in the early 80s that sound ridiculously dated these days. This one just doesn't. Quality stands the test of time, and that's true of this one. Next.
In the Eye of the Storm by Roger Hodgson.
I don't even regard this as being the Supertramp album that should have been. To me, it sounds exactly like a Supertramp album. My missus, bless her, she's, music isn't, well, she likes music, but she's not, as kind of nerdy about it as we are, frankly. And I was listening to this album the other day, and she said, who's that? I said, Roger Hodgson. And she said, Oh, it sounded like Supertramp to me, because she didn't know the names of the guys in Supertramp, Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson. That was the main pair, wasn't it? But, it just sounds like a Supertramp album. It sounds like a great Supertramp album. The title track, well, it's not the title track, is it? But the line, "In the Eye of the Storm." The first track on the album, "Had a Dream, Sleeping with the Enemy." Fantastic track. I first got to hear this album when I was at college. There was one summer holiday when we were kind of, a bunch of us were, out of like however many students, there were a few hundred, there was about a dozen of us, stayed over in the halls of residence to kind of do a bit of painting and decorating and spruce the place up. But basically a summer job, but working for the college. And that was in 1985. This album dates from 84. And this album was just on constant loop on, the kind of ubiquitous boombox kind of stereo cassette radio thing that always ended up with paint splatters as you were painting. Just love this album. It's got, I loved it at the time. I love it even more now because it's got so many happy memories for me. By the way, if you're not familiar with any of these albums, there are links to them all in the description. I just thought I'd mention that. I should have said that earlier. But certainly this one, if you're not familiar with it, it's well worth checking out. Go and give it a listen. Next.
Rock and Roll by John Lennon.
Yeah, I mean, there had to be an ex-Beatle in here, didn't there? And out of all of them, I could have chosen, it was very nearly Wings Over America, Paul McCartney, because I think that is a really strong live album. But the fact that it was Paul McCartney and Wings, does that make it count as a solo album? So I went with this one instead. John Lennon just going back to his roots. Fantastic version that you're probably more than well aware of the Ben E. King "Stand By Me" classic on here, which I think the John Lennon version, excuse me, is the definitive version of that song. It's just so fantastically put together. Mixed, I believe, by Jimmy Iovine. I think that was his debut as an engineer. I might be wrong on that. Correct me in the comments, but I seem to remember hearing that in a documentary or something at some point. Bebop Balula is on here, and as I say, Stand By Me. Look, basically it's just John Lennon, running through all of the stuff that he probably played with the Beatles in Hamburg when they were, kind of doing that circuit. Fantastic album. It's fun. It's a fun album to listen to. And the one thing that really, I think, comes across on this album is just what a great rock and roll voice John Lennon had. We tend to kind of just hear the Beatles stuff, and it's because it's part of, and John Lennon's other solo stuff, we tend to hear it as it's just part of the sort of background wallpaper, if you like, of our culture. But if you're not familiar with this album, go and check it out and just listen to what a cracking voice he's got for this kind of material. You'll love it, I promise you. Next.
Mick Taylor by Mick Taylor.
Now this is, I think, the best of the bunch. An album which was critically acclaimed when it came out in 79, but was a pretty much a damp squib commercially. Mick Taylor, if you don't know, was Brian Jones's replacement in the Rolling Stones. He was the second lead guitarist, because Keith's more kind of rhythm, isn't he? And yeah, Mick left the Stones, and this was his debut album, as I say, in 1979, and it's just utterly, it's a masterpiece. There are moments on it that sound a bit sort of Jackson Browne and Eaglesy, right the way through to the closing track, Spanish A minor, which it's got a really strong whiff of Jeff Beck about it. You could almost imagine that tune cropping up on Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow album, or Wired, or something like that. It's just, and what a guitar player. Why isn't this guy lauded as, a guitar great in the same way as other players from that generation. We all talk about Jimmy Page, we all talk about Richie Blackmore, Clapton, Jeff Beck, and so on. And many people know of Mick Taylor, but he's not mentioned in the same kind of hallowed tones or hushed tones as those other guys. And I really think he should be. And I think if you listen to this album, you might just agree with me. It's just fantastic in every way. As I say, breadth of styles, fantastic blues playing on here as well. In fact, there's a track that's just called Slow Blues. And if you like a bit of slow blues, go and check that out. It's immense. I can't wax lyrical enough about this album. It is one of my favourites. I'm listening to it a lot lately. It's one of those albums that, I was quite into back in, 20 years ago or something. And then you know how you just kind of, stop listening to stuff because other stuff comes along and you kind of forget about it and, and then rediscover it. And this is definitely one that I've rediscovered lately and loving every minute of it. So Mick Taylor, by Mick Taylor, fantastic album. Go and check it out. And those are my 5 favourite solo albums by artists who are probably better known for being members of a particular band. Make of it what you will. If you have any suggestions or if you have a list of your own, then you know what to put it down in the comments section below. It's always entertaining to read what you think I've got wrong and, maybe what you think I've got right as well. I always have a little bit of a look at those with interest. So, as I say, leave a comment down below. But that is very much the video for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. Maybe discovered some new music as a result of it. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it? Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. We have a beer and talk about stuff, music, guitars, whatever. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.